So, good afternoon to everyone. We welcome you here in our online brown bag discussion on human rights-based approach to drugs. So, I am Portia and I will be your host or facilitator for this day. So, first and foremost, we would like to thank everyone, especially our registered criminologists, professors, and educators all over the Philippines. So, I would like to acknowledge some of our colleagues coming from Cavite State University. We also have people coming from the Eastern Visayas College, Nueva Ecija University Science and Technology, St. Anne College Lucena Incorporated. We also have coming from Department of Education, as well as the Public Attorney's Office, Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency Academy, New Era University, First City Providential College, and Angeles University Foundation. We also have our colleagues from Northern Zambales College, Conception Holy Cross College, and of course, from the host college, from College of Sciences, Technology, and Communications Incorporated. So before we formally start our program, let us first have the prayer.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you today to praise and worship you and give you thanks for all the things you continue to provide for ourselves and our families. Father, we humbly ask for forgiveness for all the times you have offended you. Continue to guide and protect us, Lord. Bestow upon us your unending grace and healing, that we may in turn become instruments of gentleness and compassion to others. We ask all this in the name of your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ.
الرحمن الرحيم اللهم
With prayer and intercession of our Blessed Mother. Amen.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اللهم اهدنا الصراط المستقيم اللهم وحد صفوفنا بين المسلمين والنصارى واللوماد إلى صراطك المستقيم اللهم امنحهم العيش بالأمن والسلامة والتنمية المستدامة في مدينة دافاو اللهم لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Amoy nen manama kami gimot tolangon, manotod kakaroson no, si koikaw kami tokul tolangon, way migtumpi to tano, si koikaw kami bohoy to pagpianan tolangon na maotaw, pusako kapusuno, kana akong to pabulos koy, o agbuyo koikaw, way bohoy kat pabor, kahalaan, kalinaw, to kanami, no pag-ugpo, way kasabok kakoy, oyot kalambukan. Kay kuro tamana kakodin panubad way pag-ampo, kaupianan igboy no, way kakoy kong imono, way kahalaan ko lang.
All right. So once again, good afternoon to everyone. But before we formally proceed to the actual discussion, I would like to remind everyone to please mute your microphones during the discussion. Secondly, questions can be raised later after the discussion. Secondly, this meeting is recorded and some parts of the discussion will be posted online in Asian School of Governance page. So some of you might ask, why are we doing this? Primarily, we this brown bag discussion is presented by CSTC Incorporated, Asian School of Governance, Criminology and Criminal Justice Association of Deans and Educators in Region 3, and of course, our partner from United Nations Office on Drugs and Crimes. So primarily, we wanted to introduce to our criminology educators the concept of human rights-based approach to drugs. Secondly, is to know how this approach can address drug-related problems through human rights lens, and of course, for a possibility of knowledge co-creation and co-sharing among our peers and our colleagues in the criminology profession. So without further ado, may I request the president of the CCJ ADE Region 3 President, Dr. Godison B. Dolfo, for his opening remarks.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir.
My respect to the convener of this brown bag discussion for the human rights approach on drug education, the representative of the UNODC here in the Philippines, Sir Daniele Marchesi. Sir, good afternoon. And we have Dr. Elmer Soriano of Asian School of Governance. And of course, we have Mama Portia Hermosa of the I am very thankful that this event become possible of discussing matters relative to our objective of promoting human rights based approach in discussing with our students and our colleagues in our profession, criminology, the drug education and awareness program, and of course measure. As I conduct a study way back 2021, the effectiveness of drug education programs of that is carried out in higher education institutions, I was surprised that uh, there is no specific course except for criminology being offered to students. Well, in fact, it is part and parcel of the law, Republic Act 9165, that the school must provide in their curriculum topic or courses regarding drug education. And it surprised me since the offering of the new curriculum for general education, special topics included in courses just like in general psychology with drug education and awareness was removed, and it can only be gleaned and can be discussed in NSTP, National Service Training Program course, as one of the topic. The problem is with regards to information dissemination and teachings in that particular course, it is just limited to 3 hours. So students cannot be able to understand clearly the importance of knowing the uh, the effects of drugs once it is administered in the body, as well as the appreciation of the law prohibiting a person to administer or use drugs. But it is a glad opportunity for us, no, with the group of Ma'am Portia and Sir Elmer, to have this brown bag discussion about human rights approach in drug education. With this, no, from here in Bayview Park Hotel, I just finished my talk with the security group. At least I catch up my time, ma'am. I officially open our afternoon session or afternoon activity, the brown bag discussion regarding the human rights-based approach in drug education. Please enjoy the rest of the day and, of course, share your experiences and thoughts. Thank you and good afternoon.
All right, thank you very much, Doc Dolfo, for your opening remarks. Now it is my privilege to introduce to you our panelist slash guest speaker for this afternoon. So our panelist is an Italian national and is the program coordinator or country manager of UNODC program office in the Philippines, as he assumed the office last November 6, 2023. He brings to this position almost 20 years of experience in international organization, diplomacy, program management, development, and security cooperation. Since 2015, he has been serving the Office of the Executive Director of UNODC and Director General of UNOV, where he has supported the ED and DG on policy coordination, interagency affairs, political analysis, management issues, and program, as well as a strategy development in the areas of drugs, crime, terrorism, corruption, and justice reform. He joined the UN Secretariat in 2012, and he was first posted in the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean in Santiago, where he was responsible for managing and fundraising for a variety of regional and country level programs. Previously, he served in the external relations and development cooperation of the European Commission, including the cabinet of the External Relations Commissioner in DG AIDCO in Brussels and in the European delegation in Libya. In this post, he managed large capacity building programs in areas such as migration and border management, rule of law and security sector reform, as well as health, education, and public finance management. He also worked in various academic institutions and think tanks where he researched, taught, and published on foreign security and development policy. He holds a PhD in economics and social sciences from the University of Cologne in 2012, a master's of arts in European public administration from the College of Europe in Bourges, a master's degree in political science and international relations from LUISS in Rome, and he is fluent in English, French, Spanish, and Italian. So let us all welcome our partner from UNODC, Mr. Daniele Marchesi. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Hermosa. Thank you very much. Very flattering presentation. I wish I could say I speak also Tagalog, but unfortunately not yet. Though I'm trying to learn. So, but magandang hapon to everyone that is listening, and really my greetings to you, to Dr. Elmer, who I understand is also listening, and Dr. Dolfo. Thank you very much for the hospitality and for the opportunity to speak, to this event. As we discussed with Portia when we met here at the UN House in Manila. I think it's really important to strengthen and bolster the role of human rights and human rights-based approaches to drug policy in criminology schools and in the teaching, let's say, of criminology in the Philippines in general. This is a topic that it's important not only because human rights are important, but because promoting human rights in drug policy really makes our criminal justice responses in general more effective. So it's not only an issue of human rights, it's also an issue of effectiveness of the criminal justice response and effectiveness of public policy in general. So without further ado, I will start my presentation. I will try to be brief because I would love to have some questions and some discussions during the meeting. I don't know if you can interrupt me during the meeting. I mean, if there's a way through Zoom to do that, I don't mind. If you feel like you want to interrupt me, go ahead. I'll be happy to respond to your questions. So let me see if I can share my screen. Now you are. Share. Yes. So you can see my screen, correct? Yes.
Yeah, but we see the presenter's view.
The
If
presenter's
you could,
view.
yeah,
You want to have another view, which is, let me see if I,
perhaps you may close that first, then you try to present it again so we can see better.
let's see if I can do it again. Oh, I lost you. Let's try this. What about now?
Not yet. We haven't. Yeah, yeah, that's better. Then you
That's it?
can,
And like
yes,
this?
yeah, great.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's very, very
That's
good.
very good.
That's way
Okay,
better.
excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so first of all, I wanted to say a few words about what UNODC is, right? So the UN Office on Drugs and Crime as a mandate really focused on addressing drug-related issues through a human rights-based approach that prioritizes community well-being and dignity. We are the leading entity within the UN system in addressing drug policy. Of course, drug policy has many facets, there are many entry points into addressing drug policy, whether it's education, human rights, economic policy, security, law enforcement, etc. But let's say in UNODC, we provide a comprehensive view and specialized approach on this issue. So we have a global mandate. Our headquarters is in Vienna, but we have an office also here in the Philippines. We report here in the Philippines in a regional office that is based in Bangkok. And here we carry out programs on a variety of areas, not only on drugs, but also on the other pillars under UNODC's mandate. UNODC is part of the country team. So as you know, we're based here in Manila and in Cotabato, and we sit in the office together with other UN entities, from UNICEF to UNDP to UNFPA, etc., etc. And we have an office here, a program office in the Philippines, and we're about 30. Hello? Yeah? We're about 30 here in the Philippines in total. Yeah, 30 staff. There are a few handful of staff that are not from the Philippines, but most colleagues are Filipinos from here, And actually, I'm a bit embarrassed talking to experts in criminology from the Philippines because you're typically very, 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 very good, very competent, and I normally have much to learn, on the work that you do here in the Philippines and the expertise that you have. So let me then continue. So we have a strategic approach in the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, and just very quickly, we focus on 5 normative areas, starting with drugs, of course, addressing the world drug problem in a comprehensive manner. That's number 1. But then also the crime aspects. So we focus on transnational organized crime, and UNODC is the guardian of the Palermo Convention on the UN Convention on Organized Crime. So we are very much, and its protocols. So we have a lot of expertise on that aspect, whether it's organized crime, anti-money laundering, and gender-based violence, and other issues related to crime in general, which is very much focused on what you do in the criminology schools. Third, we work on counterterrorism, particularly the criminal justice responses to counterterrorism. So as any other phenomenon, terrorism can be looked at from the prevention angle, from the development angle, from the poverty angle, but we focus on the criminal justice response to this phenomenon. Fourth, we focus on corruption. So we are again, as a crime, we are the guardian of the UN Convention Against Corruption. So we are very much, we have a lot of programs in that area. And finally, we look in general at the justice, let's say criminal justice response, criminal justice systems. That includes our work on the prison sector, but also human rights-based approach to criminal justice, etc. So we have a, our work focuses on these 5 areas. And what is it that we do? On the one hand, we have I would say 3 main pillars of work. Okay, one is our normative work, the fact that we are guardians we are the secretary of a number of treaties or standards, global standards, but often also treaties, binding treaties, whether it's drugs, organized crime, corruption, as I mentioned, standards on criminal justice. Now there will be a new, you might be interested in criminology school, there will be a new UN treaty in the area of cybercrime, for instance, which will be the secretariat of, and we work on that. So that's one, normative work. The second area would be let's say, research and building evidence, the evidence base on this phenomenon that we're working on. So we have a strong research branch, and we carry out different type of analysis, policy analysis, or policy-based research, or leading publication in the area of drugs in the World Drug Report, which we release once a year in June on the World Drug Day. So normally it's on the 26th of June, 25th of June, we release this report. But we carry out also different sectoral researches, surveys on crop cultivation. We have a very, very important report focusing on Southeast Asia on methamphetamines and opiates cultivation in Southeast Asia, in Myanmar in particular, the Golden Triangle. So we do a lot of that. And that's the second. And the third point is capacity building. So we do technical assistance, capacity building. We promote, we provide technical assistance on legislation or on very specific grassroots work. So we do a lot of that aspect, also advocacy. So that's more the operational work that we do, right, together with the normative and the research work. So I'll move now to the issue of drugs. So focusing specifically on drugs, I just wanted to take the opportunity to give you a broad point of view on the main trends at the moment in drugs. This slide is based on our 2024 World Drug Report that I just mentioned. Of course, we're seeing around 292 people who use drugs, who have used drugs in 2000. The statistics is on 2022, but basically the trend tells us that there is in general an increase in use, although this figure is relatively stable, but it's increasing. And importantly, of these 292 million, 64 million have drug use disorder. Because of course, one thing is to say that you use drugs, and another issue, which is very different, is that you have a problem with your drug use, which means that you develop a dependence, you might have some issue of mental health, or worse, that require that have a cost for society, for your family, for yourself. Of these 64 million people around the world, only 1 out of 11 have access to treatment and rehabilitation. So very, very low figure, which varies a lot depending on the region and the country, but in general, globally, very low, very low. Because this area of the population, at the end of the day, is quite neglected, no? It is all across the world quite stigmatized and sort of forgotten part of the population. So they have an health problem, but typically they do not have access to care. The situation of women is even worse. So only 1 out of 18 women who use drugs and have a use disorder have access to treatment. Yes, in terms of the type of drug substance that is used, the highest is cannabis. Quite obviously, in the region in Southeast Asia, the most problematic, the most used substance in addition to cannabis would be methamphetamines, so synthetic drugs. But I will say later something also about opioids. This is a picture from at the global level that shows also the diversity of the problem of drugs around the world. No? Depending on the region and the place where you look, there are different substances that are being traded, trafficked, and different health problems, no? Depending on the region where you're looking at. In Southeast Asia, as I was mentioning before, the main issue is methamphetamines and a market that is growing quite quickly, and a growing demand. No, a population that is becoming richer and that has more access to these substances, which do create quite a lot of impact in terms of health problems, health impact at the society level. Here, a bit more once again, more detail, but I'll try to go quickly here because we want to go to the human rights side. But just to highlight how the methamphetamine trade in Southeast Asia, we just released a report on this in 2023, is quite rapidly expanding. This also has an impact on the Philippines. And it's linked also to, in particular, in terms of provenance of the roots. The products are mainly produced in the Golden Triangle, in Southeast Asia, in the Mekong region, where you have this Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, and to some extent also Cambodia. And in this area, in addition to methamphetamine production, there is also an increase in production of opium, because the region has been compensating on the ban on opium production that has followed the taking of power of the Taliban in Afghanistan in 2022. So because Afghanistan was the main producer by far of opium, the production has dropped, and the Southeast Asia, in particular Myanmar, has picked up on that gap, and so the production is now growing quite rapidly in the Golden Triangle again of opium. We also saw an increase in ketamine trafficking and also use, including in the Philippines in the last few years, which is also quite concerning, but still needs to be a bit studied and understood. I mean, how this is used, why it's used, and what are the health consequences of that. So now let's go to the issue of the international framework, normative framework for drug control, which is in force at the moment, no? And it's based mainly on three. When we have to look at human rights, we have to look at that. We have to start from that. So at the moment, there are three main treaties that are regulating the drug issue, the drug phenomenon. These are the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs of 1961, the convent which regulates mainly, let's say, opium, marijuana, and cannabis, and cocaine, which has been supplemented by the Convention on Psychotropic Substances in 1971, and then the Convention Against Illicit Trafficking of Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances of 1988, which is quite important in terms of let's say, the response in terms of law enforcement response to the phenomenon. Altogether, these treaties are there. They constitute the framework, and they criminalize, you know, the trafficking of drugs, and they also create a number of mechanisms to control and schedule, you know, the production and traffic trade of these substances, some of which are very important for medical use, as we all know. However, the spirit of this convention, although they are often very criticized, including by myself at times, but the spirit of this convention is really health. So the focus is really on safeguarding the health and welfare of humankind, which is absolutely consistent with the human rights principles. So they provide quite a lot of flexibility in terms of how they are implemented, and the degree of experimentations that different nations, different states can do in terms of identifying the most appropriate approach to addressing the drug phenomenon within that framework. But the spirit is mainly the spirit of safeguarding health, and I think that's important to remember, to focus on that. So they also call the treaties, indeed, parties shall take all practical measures for prevention of abuse of drugs and for the early identification, treatment, education, aftercare, rehabilitation, and social reintegration of persons involved, which again means that there are strong elements of treatment, demand reduction, health, also in the drug treaties, the three drug conventions. However, of course, as you all know, there have been lots of discussions about reforming this framework, or adapting it to the new trends, to the new situation, trying to also assess whether it's worked or not. And this has led in 2000, after a long negotiations, in 2016, to a dedicated United Nations General Assembly special session focused on the world drug problem, or the world drug issue, depending on how one defines this. And these sessions identified at the end an outcome document, or adopted an outcome document by consensus, or unanimously, which is called Our Joint Commitment to Effectively Addressing and Countering the World Drug Problem, which basically split the drug policy into seven key pillars, 7 key areas, no, to make the issue as balanced as possible. After many negotiations from different countries, whether it's the West or Asia or Latin America, all of which they had slightly different perspective about this. So the 7 pillars, it's important to highlight them, you know, because they're really at the core of the drug policy at the moment. So one is demand reduction, okay, and prevention and treatment. So one should be the focus on addressing drug abuse, treatment of drug use disorders, prevention of HIV and AIDS and hepatitis. So that's one. Second, the importance of the availability of access to controlled medicine. Because of course, when you exaggerate with or when you over-focus on supply reduction, you have an impact also on accessibility of controlled medicines, and it's important to allow for that. No? So this is really included into the drug treaties, and so there is an important chapter on that. So improve access and affordability of palliative care, medication and psychotropic medication for mental health. As we've seen, only 1 out of 11 people that have a drug disorder have access to treatment. That's one element, but also people who suffer and need maybe opioids do not have access to those medicines because of a problem of supply. Okay, so that's another aspect. Third, the supply reduction. So that's all the law enforcement element of reducing supply, focusing on money laundering and on judicial cooperation. Important also really this aspect of international cooperation, no? And on the financial aspects. Often when we look at a drug policy, and I'm not being interrupted, so I can speak for ages on this, but when we talk about a drug policy, we often focus very much on small scale drug trafficking or even drug use, unfortunately, and drug possession. And we or on the predicate offense, which can be the actual possession, trafficking, without really going into the funds, no, the financial investigation and looking at the money laundering aspect, which is probably the most important. So the UNGAs really focused on that, on focusing also on this aspect. Fourth aspect, human rights. So that's one of the 7 pillars. Human rights focus on children, special needs of youth, of women, special communities. So very important. Also important to have proportionate responses to drug policy. That's included in that chapter. 5, the importance also of adapting our responses to new psychoactive substances. So, of course, the NPS, which is continuously changing, which they also put a strain and a challenge to the scheduling mechanism that is included in the drug treaties, because, of course, there are always new chemicals, etc., but also the importance of focusing on precursors to the production of NPS, new psychoactive substances. 6th, international cooperation and shared responsibility. This is part of, let's say, the frustration of some regions that have seen an overemphasis on supply without really focusing on demand, on the problem of demand of the markets that are asking for drugs. So also the importance of collaboration and exchanging good practices. And last point, alternative development. That's also very interesting and very, very cogent also in the Philippines. When we talk about alternative development, typically we talk about crop substitution in areas where drug is produced. For example, in the region, it can be the area of the Mekong region between Laos and Myanmar. But alternative development can also apply to, in general, creating sustainable livelihoods for people that use or that are involved in trafficking because of lack of alternative illicit livelihoods. And also, it can also apply definitely to areas where there is not necessarily a production of crops, alternative development. So that's the 7th pillar, let's say, of this balanced approach. Now, this slide was focusing on the importance also of having a smart, when we look at supply, so we can synthesize these 7 pillars into maybe 3 that are the most typically discussed, and also they constitute the key parameters of the new PADS, the new anti-drugs policy in the Philippines, the enhanced anti-drug policy in the Philippines, which focuses on supply, on demand, and on treatment and rehabilitation. So on the supply side, of course, we have to be smart in the way we approach this. So there's, of course, the issue of new technologies, of cyber-enabled drug trafficking, the importance of using new techniques, controlled delivery, the issue of focusing on international cooperation, the importance of indeed focusing on large-scale trafficking rather than on small-scale use. No? On the broader aspect, let's say, of demand reduction, it's instead the importance of taking a multi-stakeholders approach of all of government, And in the Philippines, this involves, of course, as everywhere else, working with the Department of Health, with the Department of Education, with the Department of Justice, certainly, but the Department of Social Affairs and Social and Wealth, DSWD, and of course with the local government unit. And I would love to maybe have a few words also from Dr. Elmer on the work that we are doing on developing a playbook on human right-based approach to drugs for mayors, for mayors and local chief executives. So I put here also all the 17 SDGs just to highlight how indeed drug policies can be addressed really in a very comprehensive way by addressing all the different sustainable development goals. Last, maybe of the 3 points that I wanted to highlight, maybe is also the issue of prevention. This year we are really stressing through also our World Drug Report the importance of prevention. One can always use this statistic, by every dollar that one invests on prevention at all levels, one saves $10, in terms of treatment and rehabilitation. Not to mention the criminal justice response, which is extremely expensive. But this prevention needs to be done in a evidence-based way. So it's not enough to say no to drugs, or to have a campaign that just tells children to do sports, or that sending law enforcement officials into school, because that it's been shown that this really doesn't work. It's not enough. We have to have really a targeted approach to prevention that focuses on different levels, from assessing the problem, building capacity, proper planning, implementation, and evaluation, but also focusing on different ages of the youth and drug users. The latest statistics on the Philippines are showing, for instance, an increase in the use between elderly in the Philippines. So one has to focus also the prevention campaign on that type of a segment of the population, and what works for children in kindergarten or in preschool doesn't work the same way for people that are working, or that even are pension have stopped working. So we have to find the right approach to prevention. Here I have put a few of the tools that we have developed as UNODC in these areas, from alternative to imprisonment to treatment and care for people who use drugs, or the different standards that we have developed also with the WHO, which we can share with the criminology schools, so that you can also have those tools and these international standards in your work. Right, so I think I spoke for about 20 minutes. Now I will just focus on the human rights aspect. So as I was mentioning, one of the pillars under the UNGAS, on the balanced approach to drugs, is really the focus on human rights. And this is particularly important here in the Philippines, where you're coming from some important wounds, of a period where you have gone through this war on drugs that has created a lot of how to say, human right violation and wounds, in the population, that have to be mended, and have to a lot of rebuilding to do in terms of accountability, etc. So focusing on human rights is really important. And I have highlighted here the key principles, of the human rights, the human rights treaties and the human rights bodies that we have developed as an international community. The first one being universality and inalienability. So human rights are universal, meaning that they apply to every person, everywhere, regardless of nationality, race, gender, and other status. And then we can see how this particular principle of human rights applies also to drug policy. We can see how that it's important that any policy would not discriminate on regarding to race, gender, nationality, etc. Indivisibility. So all human rights, whether civil, political, economic, social, or cultural, are equally important. One set of rights cannot be fully enjoyed without the others. So as we focus on civil and political rights, we should not neglect economic and social rights. And typically, health is identified as social right, for instance, but it is actually a human right. We have to address them together. And when you have a health-based approach to drugs, you're also promoting human rights at the same time. Interdependence and interrelatedness, the realization of one human right often depends on the fulfillment of others. For example, the right to health may depend on rights to education, clean water, and adequate housing. That's also very important, again, as you see the connection between human rights and development, and also drug policy. Equality and non-discrimination, that's also related to what I was mentioning before on universality. The fact that there should not be discrimination based on color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinions. That's quite clear. Participation and inclusion, that's also very important to include as much as possible, including civil society in the development of policies that have to do with human rights. So people have the right to participate actively, freely, and meaningfully in decisions affecting their lives. And this is particularly true also at the local level. Accountability and rule of law. States and duty bearers are accountable for respecting, protecting, and fulfilling human rights. Individuals must have access to justice, and violation of human rights should be addressed through legal frameworks. And this is also connected really to the aspect of accountability, the importance of building integrity in the duty bearers, and in all the areas where the people who use drugs are in contact with the law or other services. It's very important that their rights are protected, fulfilled, but also that they have a redress mechanism in case these are violated. That applies not only to the criminal justice system, but also, for instance, to rehabilitation and treatment centers. Transparency and access to information, we're pushing a lot for that. That's, of course, very important. People should have access to information and yeah. Overall, this is the general principle. Human rights have to do with dignity. They recognize and protect the inner dignity of every individual, ensuring freedom from humiliation, degradation, and harm. And this has to do very much with people who use drugs, who are often poor and are victimized several times because of their poverty, because they use drugs, because they are in contact with the criminal justice system, because they are stigmatized, because they are isolated, because they are neglected, because they are left as the last one of the last one. So that's really an important, I would say, the key aspect, really having dignity, the dignity of the individual at the center of our work on drugs. So how should this principle guide policy I already mentioned in some ways and practices effectively to address drug-related concerns and benefit the community? I think I've missed a couple of slides, they disappeared, but here I wanted to talk about the guidelines, the guidelines that exist of the UN on human rights approach to drug policies. These are guidelines that have been developed by a number of UN entities, including the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, but also OHCHR, so the High Commissioner for Human Rights, UNDP, and they really look at different aspects through which basically we can promote human rights in drug policy. And Dr. Elmer knows quite a lot about this. We have promoted these tools in the context of the UN Joint Program of Human Rights, and in particular on the health-based and human rights approach to drugs. in really promoting a different narrative in the Philippines that puts human rights at the center of drug policy. Of course, I will share them at the end of this presentation so that you can also see them. Yeah. Here, this is an image I wanted to mention also. You might know from the criminology schools. I hope you know. We've held very recently in July, together with the Department of Justice and the Dangerous Drugs Board, Philippine Drug Policy and Reform Law Reform Summit, which really put together over the course of several months a number of recommendations from all across the Philippines, including at the local level, and on reforming the drug policy and drug law in the Philippines, including the famous comprehensive dangerous drug Act 9165. And at the moment, the Department of Justice and the Dangerous Drugs Board and the Department of Health are quite committed to continuing this work and ensuring that the recommendations that were put together during the Drug Policy Summit are actually actionable, and they can promote an actual reform of the 9165, because it is quite clear that at the moment that legal framework is producing some imbalances, particularly when you look at the criminal justice system and the continuous overcrowding in the prison sector, which is now still at 350% in the Philippines, and all the related problems with the treatment and rehabilitation system, with the prevention system, etc. So it's very important to continue to work on this issue. And there's, I think, a good alliance. I mean, you have here a photo which puts together, which is nice because it puts together on one hand civil society, different departments in the Philippines, from Dangerous Drugs Board to Department of Health to Department of Justice, the international community, the legislative. So it's I think it goes to show really how we can build an alliance to ensure that we develop like a human rights based approach to drugs. So I will stop here. Let me see if I can unshare my screen. And I would love to get some reactions and questions from the floor. Yeah.
All right. So for those who wanted to ask some questions to our speaker, you may use the chat box, or you may raise your hand to be recognized. So your question will be asked. Right. So while we are waiting for the question, so Daniele, I have a question.
Yes.
So in the context of criminology education, how can we as criminology educators or criminal justice educators can contribute to the advocacy of human rights based approach to drugs?
Well, in the context, I think you play a crucial role, no? Because you're really forming and training the either the current or the future duty bearers from different angles, no? Whether it's the actual people that will be doing the law enforcement policing, or it can be future prosecutors, or it can be even judges. Anyways, a lot of the persons that will be involved in the implementation of drug policy, and it's very important that you work on by showing that the standards exist. And mine is not a presentation on the standards. I mean, you can find certainly a better one, but by showing that the standards exist, you're also working to change the culture of the people that will be working in this area, in the future. I think it's very important to highlight how drug policy is not a simple, cannot be solved with a simple criminal justice response. It requires really a multifaceted and sensitive, human rights sensitive approach, so it's essential role that you have really.
All right. Thank you very much, Daniele. We also have another question here. So he said that how can we effectively control drugs use and ensuring both individual rights and community safety?
Yeah. Well, it's a balance, no? It's a public policy that the worst thing that can happen. This is a very good question, no? Of course, it depends on the different culture, the different appetite of the community or of the nation where you work. As UNODC, we work all around the world, so there are different approaches, no, to this, but in general, it's the worst thing that one can do is, and I think in the criminology school, you have to pass this message. The worst thing that one can do is to work by using slogans, whether it's war on drugs or no to drugs or zero tolerance or these slogans. They don't serve any purpose, and it can only do damage. What is needed is more evidence, no? Really looking at what is it that works and focusing on data and another important aspect is consulting, the inclusiveness. So consulting the community, seeing from the community what is the preference, what is the interest, what is the appetite. I think that's also very important, while keeping human rights really at the center of our work.
All right. So since you have said that what's more important is data and evidence based policies. So I believe it will be a boost or moral encouragement to our criminology educators to conduct research and extension programs with respect to drugs. Um,
Yeah,
so
research is essential. Research and data are essential. And I must admit that in the Philippines, you have an amazing academic and university and even criminology system. But in terms of the actual data management by government authorities, you need a lot of, you still need a lot of work, a lot of coordination. In general, that's missing, So good luck for this work.
yes, so I hope so that it will also encourage my fellow professionals in the criminology education. So another question that we have is coming from JCFC in Pampanga. She asked, how do we reconcile strict anti-drug policies with the need to uphold human rights, particularly in cases involving marginalized communities here in the Philippines?
Well, I think as I was mentioning, the, we have to work on different fronts, no? On the one hand, there is the current legal framework that exists, which we also know in the Philippines can provide different outcomes. No, I mean, we have to be honest. This legal framework has been there for 20 years and has produced different outcomes, because one thing is the legal framework and the other thing is also the political atmosphere, the political approach. So of course, one administration can over focus on the war on drugs, and under that legal framework produce a different outcome than another administration that maybe focuses more on treatment, rehabilitation, and so the narrative. I'm sorry to say that I'm not necessarily a constructivist since we're among academics, but the narrative is very important on that. But then, of course, the long-term game is also changing this legal framework, modifying, adapting it now that you've tested it for 20 years. you see that what works, what doesn't work, and the kind of problems that it can produce. And for that, of course, we also need advocacy. We also need both the parliament to do this, but also advocacy from the government and from civil society, etc. In terms of the actual human rights work, also often it's carried out at the community level. So we have been promoting also community-based treatment and rehabilitation programs, and in general, community-based approach to drugs is very important. There is always a lot of benefit, a lot of work that can be done on human rights if one focuses at the community level. So yeah, that's what I can say on that. But it is a dilemma for sure.
All right. So thank you. Do we have another questions from the body? You may use the chat box or you may raise your hand to be acknowledged. Okay. So I hope we are not taking so much of your time, but I would also like to ask, since you have said that your office, UNODC, has an extensive research works, how could we possibly contribute to the knowledge that you are creating through your research? I know for sure that um, our participants are also curious to know what can we do forward as well. And secondly is since one of the objectives of this brown bag discussion is to have a network of criminologists who can contribute to the betterment or improvement of our peace and order as well as safety and security. So how could we also contribute to the UNODC with your work?
Okay, so first of all, thank you for the question, and so we are here, and I think this conversation will continue. This was just a first meeting, and I'm really glad that we had that meeting. No, um, but just to highlight a couple of things on the research side. We're working quite a lot with the University of the Philippines and with other research bodies, and we often use also consultants and any research data that we can receive is welcome also in developing the annual World Drug Report and other activities that we do. So sort of organizing a partnership with some of the criminology schools that do more research would be something that we could consider in the future, so that we can share data and information. That's one thing. The second thing is in general on on your curriculum and the development of your curriculum. So I did not mention that in the context of the UN Joint Program on Human Rights, one thing that was done and that we're very proud of is a mapping of the curriculum on human rights-based approaches to police, in particular, and drugs in the different police academies that you have in the Philippines. And our sister agency, OHCHR, so the Office of High Commissioner for Human Rights, has been working on that from the criminology school side. This work has started, but it's not completed, and we would like to continue it so that we can map one thing and then develop a comprehensive and unified curriculum, or at least with some certain standards on human rights-based approach to drugs and policing that can be rolled out and cascaded by the criminology school. So this is great and amazing, and I think we should do that. No, we should work on that. So I really hope there is a follow-up to this discussion so that we can explore that in the future.
Right. Thank you very much. Should we have another questions on the chat box? So you may also raise your hands if you have questions or clarifications.
I'm also kind of a bit running out of time, but if there's another question, I'm happy to take it.
All right. So perhaps I could send some email or forms if they have question and I can
Sure.
relay it to you. So I know that you have a schedule this afternoon, so we will not hold you any further. But before we um end this, may I request to have a photograph with you?
Oh, okay.
So I request all our participants to please turn on your cameras. So Danielle, it was such an honor for you to give us some of your time today. I know you are very busy, and thank you for your generosity with us.
No, it was a pleasure for me, and I hope that the presentation that I gave somehow made a bit of sense of what you were expecting. But of course, it was a first meeting, and my main point is really that you're doing some great work, and thank you very much for wanting to partner also with the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, and really look forward to continue to work together on this.
We are also looking forward for that. So I think everyone is ready on three, one, two, three. Right. So let's have another one. One, two, three. Okay, so thank you very much, Danielle. And please, I would like to give our simple token of appreciation to you. So we would like to award this certificate of appreciation to Danielle Marchesi in grateful appreciation of his time and effort for being the guest panelist during the conduct of brown bag discussion on human rights-based approach to drugs on December 6, 2024 via Zoom. His generosity is instrumental in introducing possible knowledge sharing and co-creation among criminology schools in the Philippines. And I would also like to add that we are now in our 67 participants coming from the different parts of Luzon and Visayas. So thank you very much, Daniele, for your time, your generosity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you also for the certificate. Thanks. And happy weekend. I think we are
Happy weekend.
almost there.
Yeah.
Bye.
So see you around,
Bye.
Daniele. Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
So as we move forward in this event, I would like also to talk about possible um excuse me, possible cooperation and collaboration with the different schools. So as you have seen, meron po tayong Google Forms which we are trying to collect your emails. So if we have some questions at the same time, if you also wanted to collaborate with participating schools, it would be a very great help in sharing knowledge creations and other research endeavors. So yun naman po yung isa sa mga objectives natin, na magkaroon tayo ng network of criminology schools and educators who will advocate for not only your human rights-based approach to drugs, but other criminological and research endeavors. So thank you very much. I would also like to remind everyone to kindly register to the Google Forms, and we will also be sending the lecture via email. So please check on your emails in a while. At the same time, your certificates of attendance and participation shall be forwarded within 2 weeks. So thank you very much, ma'ams and sirs, for your time and for your dedication in sharing this endeavor. Have a blessed, great weekend, everyone. Thank you po.